The Republican Party under Donald Trump, and particularly the right wing of the Republican Party, are very sympathetic to Vladimir Putin. I mean, I've been with Trump and Putin. Trump is in awe of Putin. When you see Trump with Putin, as I have on a few occasions, he's like the 12-year-old boy that goes to high school and meets the captain of the football team. My hero. It is really creepy. It's really creepy.
That's former Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull weighing in on this week on the relationship between former President Trump and President Vladimir Putin. And Willie, our own Jonathan Lemire, got an up-close and personal view of that really creepy relationship. I think Russian thugs manhandled him and threw him out of the room after that. Yeah. But, up close and personal, where, again, Donald Trump said he trusted Vladimir Putin more than he trusted his own intelligence chiefs that he had appointed.
Yeah, a moment in Helsinki that no one will ever forget, John. And also, it's so fascinating to hear another world leader who's actually been in private rooms and just watch that dynamic, to have him say it now out loud, that the thing you think about Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin is true. Yeah, seeing that insight, useful. But it's what we all saw on display. I mean, in Helsinki and a handful of other times that the Trump and Putin met, and it seemed that just even the body language was so obvious who was in charge of that particular setting. And Trump seemed so eager to please whatever Vladimir Putin wanted. And we know, of course, that happened behind the scenes and even with policy. And again, we're at a moment now where the Russia questions continue to dog Trump, as well as they should. His praise of Putin heading into this year's election. Now we know that the informant that was at the heart of the Republican House Committee's efforts to impeach Joe Biden may have been a Russian asset. So these questions still persist. It's the exact relationship between Trump and Putin. And if nothing else, Trump and his colleagues, useful idiots for Moscow. And Joe, as we know, Donald Trump dreams of the kind of power that Vladimir Putin has, which is power without restraints of, say, a constitution, a Congress, a media that holds him in check. And now he's said some of these things out loud this time around in a way he wasn't quite so explicit about last time.
Right. You know, it doesn't make sense. None of it has made sense from the very beginning. You can have people writing op-eds on the Trump right talking about, oh, no Russian hoax, no Russian connection, no Russian this, no Russian that. Well, you know, they're going to have to go a long way to explain his bizarre behavior over the years, starting on our show when he said that, you know, yeah, Putin may kill people, but we kill a lot of people, too, in the United States. But at least Putin is a strong leader. You fast forward to the invasion, and Donald Trump is saying that, you know, Vladimir Putin's brilliant with his invasion, then saying he would end the war in Ukraine in a day. Doesn't take, as the Wall Street Journal's Dan Henninger said, doesn't take a lot of imagination to figure out how that would look. And he talked about Munich, 1938. And now, of course, just if you look now, Chris, right now the Ukrainian troops are being killed. They are dying. They are on their back hill. The Russian invaders are pushing them forward. Why? Because Donald Trump told Mike Johnson, don't help the Ukrainians. By omission, help Vladimir Putin. And Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, said, okay.
You know, I think there used to be guardrails in the Cold War that we would ask ourselves. I mentioned this before. You'd say, well, can Stalin kill people? He's head of the Soviet Union. Can he kill people if he wants to? Dissidents, people don't. Of course he could. And we went it all the way up through Khrushchev. Can he still kill people when he wants to? I don't know. But here's a guy that, Navalny, I thought that would stop a lot of people say, well, I don't want to fight on behalf of Ukraine, but I don't care about the politics of the Eastern European countries and the people in the near perimeter of Russia. But he's killing people. Right. I would think that would make people, the most pro-Trump person in the world, say, well, wait a minute. We're not on that guy's side. He's a killer. But they haven't. Just the Nothing opposite. Seems to work in the old guardrails where people say, to a point, you know, you can be with somebody. And you say, well, let's try to deal with Hillary. I thought for a while was going to try to deal with Putin in a different way. But you just got to recognize the guy's a killer.
Well, they're politically unmoored. They are, when it comes to politics, they are morally unmoored. And it is so shameful, Caddy, that you actually have Republicans, Newt Gingrich for one, saying, oh, Donald Trump is Navalny. Here you have Navalny dying in a Russian gulag, and in the most awful way. And you have Donald Trump flying around on a 757 in his country club in South Florida, and again, getting in trouble for what one judge said, raping a woman. That doesn't sound like Navalny behavior. For stealing nuclear secrets, for lying to the FBI, lying to the Justice Department about whether he still had the documents, refusing to return those documents. Doesn't sound like Navalny, and yet they shamelessly draw a line between Navalny and Donald Trump. It is. I've used the word before over the last week or two. It is so grotesque, and they do it completely and utterly without shame.
Yeah.